two parts. The first one shall be left for the speakers for the deliberation of about 20 minutes each, followed by question answer part. It will be completed by the concluding remarks by the session chair. Now, I would like to request Dr. Rishi Adhikari, chairperson of NIIR, former ambassador and former foreign affairs advisor to the Prime Minister of Nepal, to chair the session. Dr. Adhikari, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, and welcome everybody. I'll request Sunilji to carry on the activities today.
Okay, thank you very much. By the approval of the chair, I would like to formally start the webinar with short introduction of our organization. Nepal Institute of International Relations, NIIR, is an independent, non-governmental, non-profit making organization established in 2019, getting registered at the government of Nepal with the objectives of doing research and conducting regular discussion forums on international politics, diplomacy, foreign policy, etc., to support Nepal government to adopt necessary steps to make Nepal's foreign policy substantial for the benefit of the country and the people. Since its establishment, it has already organized 12 webinars. The running one is 13. Now, let me formally welcome the speakers of the session. We feel honored by their presence, and I would like to briefly introduce them. Mr. C.P. Gajurel is a renowned politician of Nepal. He joined the Communist Party in 2023 BS. This BS is Bikram Sambat Nepal uses this era, and upgraded to Central Committee member of CPN 4th Congress in 2037 BS. Politburo member in 2040, CPN Masal. Secretariat member, CPN Maoist in 2065. Secretary of the Central Committee, Unified Communist Party of Nepal Maoist in 2067. Presently is Central Vice Chairperson, CPN Maoist. He was elected member of Constituent Assembly in 2064. He was imprisoned in Nepal as well as in India jails for about 6 years for the political cause. He is a BSc degree holder. He has visited 17 foreign countries and has published 6 political books, an epic, and a collection of stories. Now, I'd like to introduce Mr. Khalequzzaman. Mr. Khalequzzaman is the General Secretary of Socialist Party of Bangladesh. He is one of the important leaders of left political movement in Bangladesh, founder and topmost leader of Left Democratic Alliance. He had started political career joining student movement in 1962, joined communist movement in 1964, and labor movement in 1968. Joined Liberation War of Bangladesh in 1971 as the commander of former Greater Comilla district and as subsector commander of FF Force in 1971. Joined National Socialist Party in 1971 and served as district president and information and research secretary of the Central Committee. Jailed from 1974 to 78 for political reason. Formed Socialist Party of Bangladesh in 1980, served as national and international journalist, elected General Secretary of Socialist Party of Bangladesh in 2009, visited 12 foreign countries and published 7 political books. Mr. Atul Thakur is a New Delhi-based public policy professional, Deputy Secretary, State Department Council and Nodal Coordinator, India-Nepal Center, PHDCCI, and news columnist, the Kathmandu Post, the Hindu, Indian Express, Financial Express, Economic Times, etc., with specialization in the interface of economics and politics. He has published 3 books. Now, after the short introduction of our speakers, I would like to go ahead. Despite 21.2% of the Indian population living below the international poverty line of $1.9 US, and in fact, 270 million people being under poverty line, India now seems to be a rising economic and nuclear power in South Asia. The present scenario of her could have been a very trustworthy and sincere friend for her neighbors. But it is a feeling among Nepalese people that her attitude toward her neighbors looks as if she has inherited British legacy in her innermost heart to trouble and or create disturbances or doubt because of her inconspicuous attempt to keep the neighbors under more or less colonial status in one way or the other. There is no neighbor of hers having no problem with her except Bhutan, which has also not manifested her agony due to her bid to gain support in its border dispute with China. Still, Bhutan seems to be suffocated with India in some case. Taking Nepal-India relations into considerations, though it is rhetorically repeated time and again that both of them have religious, linguistic, cultural, and people-to-people relationship for ages, and also has bread and betrothal, that is roti-beti relationship. Nepal has been squeezed many times under the grips of Indian government with one or other pretension. The attitude of India towards her neighbors since its independence has raised some questions. Is her role positive toward neighbors if thought rationally from her side too? Why are India's neighbors doubtful about her intentions? Is India playing a role that befits a big and strong country aspiring for a permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council? How should the smaller neighbors respond to this situation? Has SAARC become redundant due to India? Is it possible for India to develop, creating problems in neighboring countries? Can India perceive that the development of her neighbors contribute to her development? Does India believe that the peace and stability in neighborhoods automatically address the security concern of us? Is it possible for India to free herself from the intoxication of the legacy of British India? How big hand India's foreign policy does have to weaken bilateralism and regionalism in this region? These are some of the questions the organizers are confident that the scholars would certainly furnish a satisfying response to the participants. Again, welcoming you all, I should like to request Mr. Atul Thakur to deliver his speech. Mr. Atul Thakur, welcome.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you also to Mr. Arvind and Yuvraj who have invited me for this talk. And I appreciate Nepal in this timely talk on India and the neighborhood, which is indeed a very important subject. Hope I am audible to all of you. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, we can hear
you. Yes, you are audible. Yes, right.
Yeah. So I will begin with the reference from Mr. Moderator's note, which I think has few questions which otherwise could be termed misnomers about India. Because while talking about India in 2020, we can't simply recall the British legacy it has. And it has moved far ahead as the world's largest democracy. We have to admit that India has a population of 1,030 crore people and full with diversity. It is indeed one of the fastest emerging economies of the world. But besides that, the most important attribute which this country has is its democracy and democratic values. In the neighborhood, it has been playing a pivotal role as a facilitator. Never it has intruded into the territories of any of its neighbors. So I think most of the questions which were put in the background note can be certainly discussed, but I think which are not as per the facts available to us. Here, I will keep my presentation very brief because we have already lost 20-25 minutes in starting the program. And we have two very senior speakers with us, Mr. C.P. Gajurel, who is a senior leader of Communist Party of Nepal, and Mr. Khalequzzaman from Socialist Party of Bangladesh. I have privilege of knowing both of them as an observer in South Asia. So I here have 15 points, which I think should address some of your queries. I will begin with the first one. Admitting the gaps which have been glaring in diplomatic engagements between India and its neighborhood, and also in bilateral at bilateral fronts. The government of India must encourage diplomatic interactions and track to economic and strategic diplomacy, strategic as well as economic diplomacy. When I talk of help from the industry and under the aegis of India Nepal Center, we have been consistently working with the Nepal embassy, government of Nepal, even up to the Prime Minister office, to deepen India Nepal bilateral relations without getting any misnomers which keep coming our way. In recent years, this has been missing things. I must admit this, but we don't have to blame India alone for this. Many of times, reciprocity has been a big challenge from Nepal as well, because the domestic political compulsions at times have determined the foreign relations choices for Nepal. About the Bangladesh, the situation is a little different, but here we are talking of neighborhoods, so not necessarily we will confine ourselves only to Nepal and Bangladesh, but surely these two countries will only special importance for India. Point two is deepening bilateral societies. When it comes to India-Nepal relations and India-Bangladesh relations, we have to admit certain historical facts, like people-to-people relations have been the cornerstone of the bilateral relations in both the countries, both ways. I mean, with Nepal as well as Bangladesh. Also, we have BBIN framework, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, and Nepal network, which has been moribund for years, which has not been so active. Now it is the time in post-COVID-19 time, then we should give its well-deserved due. Point three is our side mechanism meeting, which had recently taken place on 18th August. It was attended by Nepal's Foreign Secretary and India's ambassador to Nepal, Mr. Quadra, and which resulted with, I think, so many positive outcomes, because for so many months there have been no diplomatic dialogues at formal level. So I think, in my view, this should take place at least twice in a year to remove the anomalies and remove the misconceptions between the official establishments. India-aided projects in Nepal needs extra review and extra negotiations, which can be dealt only through oversight mechanism meetings. The projects related to infrastructure and hydroelectricity have made significant progress in recent years. There are a few examples like integrated checkpost at Viratnagar, Arun 3 projects, hydroelectricity projects, which is in very good shape. Recently, we have conducted a very successful webinar on this theme. And in fact, NSPC has signed an MOU with our support with the government of Nepal recently. There is an institutional PHDCCI. The road projects in Madhya have also seen some developments. There are a few roads which are in province too, like Janakpur to Jati and other roads. The gas pipeline has been completed. Then Jayanagar-Janakpur railways has long been completed, but sadly it's not operational because there are some internal matters in Nepal which needs to be looked on by the Ministry of Transport, Government of Nepal. From India's side, there is no problem. We all are aware, I think, about this. I think two projects which need India's attention, and for that matter, Nepal's cooperation to East-West Postal Road, which is also known as Hulaki Rajmarg. And second is Jogbani Viratnagar cross-border railway line. Because in Nepal, there is a small stretch of railway infrastructure which lies between Jayanagar in North Bihar, Madhya district, to Janakpur. I think which is not as per the potential Nepal is offering. And Nepal must get a vast network of railways for logistic movements and giving economic momentum a new life. Point four is about Bangladesh. From Bangladesh, the reciprocity is required, as India has closely indicated its preferred ties with neighbors, including Bangladesh. Even most recently, the Prime Minister of India had spoken during his Independence Day speech that neighbors always come first for India, and we will give due priorities to our neighbors, despite some recent happenings which we had seen with Nepal and other places. other countries. India's stand is permanent and which is in favor of its neighbors. So I don't think there is any need of getting too much anxious about India's role or India's intention. India's state policy has been peaceful, and it can't cross the Rubicon in any case. Most recently, 2 days back, Foreign Secretary of India has visited Dhaka and holds a special interaction with his counterparts there. Now, Bangladesh government needs to take into consideration of India's concern, which is regarding China's proposed investment of about $1 billion for making a bridge on Tista River. Tista River is very important for India, and not only India, but also for Nepal, Myanmar, Bhutan, and Bangladesh. And it's just near the threshold of Northeast. So I think Bangladesh should come back on this. The Foreign Secretary of India has also announced that Bangladesh will be the first recipient of COVID-19 vaccine if India can develop it. And there is significant development. When he said about Bangladesh, that means Nepal as well, because to Nepal, the government of India has already assured it. And we all know that when it comes to COVID-19 vaccine, only India is going to take the lead, because the Serum Institute has almost done the process and most trial is happening. So if we get this vaccine, this will boost our capacity to fight against this deadly virus. And also we can end the lockdown, which is very badly impacting our economic lives. Point fifth is, with the unwavering support of Nepal and Bangladesh, India should take a lead for reviving SAARC and recalibrating BBIN network. I'm slightly amazed when the moderator had said initially that whether India should be blamed for a defunct SAARC, which is, I think, which is new learning for me, because I never go through such perception. When it comes to SAARC, we all know that what Pakistan did with SAARC and SAARC. So we need to really get more clarity on this, and I don't think India is against SAARC. India has been one of the key voices and one of the founders of SAARC, and of course Nepal had played a very pivotal role for that. And so Kathmandu being the SAARC secretariat, Nepal has to continue playing an important role besides Bangladesh. Fostering regional and sub-regional cooperation hold key for the peace and prosperity in Nepal and the South Asian region. We always talk of bilateral lessons for what goes good, what goes bad, but we seldom talk about regional and sub-regional cooperation. When I say regional cooperation, that means a wider framework where we can imagine about shared prosperity of South Asian countries, including Nepal, Bangladesh, and other member nations. And sub-regional cooperation, if we are talking like India, Nepal has open borders. Like it has many states which are nearby, the districts of UP, Bihar, Uttarakhand, and West Bengal. So even between the districts, there can be economic cluster which can be beneficial for the economic cooperation of both the countries. In the changed world with COVID-19 and lockdown, of course, the world has after this deadly virus and lockdown. The economies will see the process of coupling, decoupling, alignment, realignment, and non-alignment. The regional cooperation will be a must for safeguarding the South Asian economies during rely on advanced countries, because they all are in problem now. And hello.
Yeah, yes, Atulji, we can hear you.
Yes.
Please continue.
Yeah. Sorry, there was a call. So post COVID-19 world, we have to fight against the protectionist tendency of the advanced regimes. For that matter, and we have already seen the signs from the United States and other Western economies. This will result with sort of deglobalization. I think deglobalization is a new term. We have seen the good and bad effects of globalization over a period of over many decades, or last many decades. But deglobalization means now the advanced economies which have better leeway or capacity to exert their efforts as well as resources, now will be very cautious while engaging with the developing countries. especially those who are export-led economies like India, Bangladesh, or Nepal. In the case of Nepal, export is not a big strength, but yes, it has been a recipient of government aids, and of course, at many junctures, it had collaborated with advanced economies very closely, like the United States, the UK, and Japan, of course. So this will result with sort of deglobalization. To stay protected from the imminent economic losses, the South Asian economies have to strengthen the cooperation among themselves and give the unit of South Asia the due it deserves. We have to change our lexicon dictionary, as well as the grammar of our speaking. Because if you will keep pointing about the things which are not existing, we will end up being disappointed. So instead of that, let's create a positive vibe, because we are no longer in position to afford any misnomers, afford any confusion. It is for the sake of not only Nepalese or Indian or Bangladeshi. It has to be for South Asians. Point 7 is India's rise in the world should not be seen as a disadvantage for its neighbors. Whether it is an opportunity for them, with collaborative efforts and vision for shared prosperity, a positive wave can be created. This is my firm belief that India's rise is not a threat to Nepal, Bangladesh, or any country. We have history to see. Look back. India has never been an aggressive country like China. If we can be impartial for a moment, we can assert it. And nothing against any particular country. If I'm naming China, it's just a historical fact. India has not developed anything like BRI. It is just trying to support any infrastructure project through bilateral mechanisms. It could have done this, but it has never exercised that choice. Point 8 is respecting each other's concern. Certainly, Nepal or Bangladesh can have certain concerns regarding India. There can be some gaps, there can be some problems, which can be improved, but which should be channelized in proper manner. Which should not be seen as a lost opportunity or opportunities foregone. Because when we come to dialogue, we can solve all these problems. And we have such friendly terms that we can sit together, we can see in eye to eyes, and can resolve our problems. Nothing is which can't be solved. The nation of Bangladesh came into existence with India's support. We all are aware that what India did in 1971 liberation of Bangladesh. And India holds a very close socio-cultural and historical bond with it. India keeps utmost care for Bangladesh's strategic and economic concern. Likewise, Bangladesh should reciprocate as well. In fact, Bangladesh has been reciprocating, no doubt about it, like Nepal. Nepal has always stood with India in the testing times. We can't forget that Nepalese leaders had fought for India's freedom struggle. So we Indians keep very high respect for Nepalese leaders. They are not just the Nepal's leaders, but they are the leaders for us as well, like BP Korala and many communist leaders who fought very bravely for India's independence. We can't forget that fact. And I think these are some of the best tributes we have for bilateral relations. In the case of Nepal, I think Nepal should see its deep bilateral relations with India through the prism of continuity and change. Continuity means we should uphold the traditional ties and terms. Change means the aspiration. The young people, many of them are very aspirational, and nothing untowards that. Even Indian people, young people are very aspirational. So we need to reciprocate to their feelings as well. However, it must take into account India's strategic and economic concern and reciprocate to carry forward an excellent friendly terms. There is no reason Nepal should lose India, a friendly term which it has developed with Nepal since the time immemorial. Point 10 is, I hope I'm not getting so long. I will take just 2-3 minutes more. Economic cooperation in different sectors should be given due preferences. I'm talking more and more of economy. Hope you will forgive me, because I do hail from the industry background, especially for the sectors like tourism, energy and infrastructure, agri and food processing, services, and skill development, including with new technology. In these 5 areas, if Nepal, India can cooperate, I think there is no reason that both countries will be not benefited. Similarly, with Bangladesh, these options are always allowed. And I'm glad to share with you that many of these things are already happening among our countries. But we just need to recalibrate them. Point 10 is to look towards the world and aspiring for greater integration. Nepal should work diligently
Excuse
for
me,
improving.
Mr. Atul, your time is going to be off. You should finish within 1 minute.
Yeah, just 1 minute. Domestic fundamentals. It is well placed and endowed with rich natural and human resources. There is enough possibility for Nepal to emerge as a hub for services in South Asia. It should practice make in Nepal and make for Nepal. Since Communist Party is ruling, it understands very well the speciality of mode of production in own country. So, and the China factor, which should be, I think we should not deter Nepal to continue its friendly ties with India. It can coexist. It can keep good relations with all the countries. So China, with having good terms with China, should not deter its relations with Nepal. India is the most positive for deepening its ties with the neighbors and make South Asia a zone for hope for Asian century dreams. Asian century dreams is still not over, and we should work towards that direction. With this thought, I'm ending my presence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atul. Now, I would like to take opportunity to invite Mr. C.P. Gajurel to deliver his speech. You are muted. You are muted. Whether. Not sir. Please unmute. What is the problem? युवराज जी त्यहाँ के प्रब्लम भयो जस्तो
के प्रब्लम आयो यहाँ त केही पनि देख्दै देखिएन
अहिले त आथ्यो कम्प्युटरको अब खोइ फेरि गयो
त्यो त आउने जाने गरिरहेछ के भयो
This is the problem of the computer. Maybe it's hang.
झुलुक्क देखिनु भएको थियो
Yeah, the computer is hanging and it will open, I guess. If he can start without the text, without the sharing, he can speak, I guess.
If he has printed copies, I think he can start.
So, I think moderator, before he, fixes his problem, we can go to the another speaker if he's
Okay,
ready.
okay, okay. So,
Maybe
so
taking the consent with him if he is ready for that.
We can hear him.
तपाईँको बनाउँदै गर्दा म अर्को स्पिकरलाई इन्भाइट गरौँ त खोइ
So become
I think yes.
Yes. So now there seems to be a technical problem with the computer of Mississippi Gajurel. So in that case, I would like to invite Mr. Khalequzzaman to deliver his speech.
Do you hear me, please?
Huh?
Do you hear me, please?
Yes, yes, we heard, yes.
Honorable Chair, moderator, distinguished discussants and participants. Appreciating Dr. Atul Thakur's presentation, I would like to convey my heartfelt and warm greetings from Socialist Party of Bangladesh SPB to everybody, especially organizers of Nepal Institute of International Relations for organizing such an event. The topic India and the neighborhoods is obviously time befitting, are bearing brunt of India's expansionist policy due to its inherent imperialist character of state. The problems arising out of India's roles in terms of its relationship with its neighborhoods, outlined in the concept paper prepared by the Nepal Institute of International Relations, have now reached to the political and other interferences of India in the affairs of its bordering countries and historical background portrayed in the concept paper. The relations between India and its neighboring countries began to sour more or less soon after India came into being as an independent country. It is mentioned in the paper. In recent time, when Narendra Modi was elected to the office of Prime Minister for the first time in 2014, he invited his counterparts from Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Maldives, and Bhutan to his swearing-in ceremony. In that occasion, it was told that India wants to promote a more friendly ties with its neighbors, assuring that Indian foreign policy will be shifted from focus towards its neighbors to neighborhood first policy. Expectation grew from different may take a new turn towards regional mutual connectivity and cultivating cross-border relations. But within a very short time, apart from ongoing China and India conflict, the relation of India with its neighbors gradually became more violent. It is also mentioned in the paper. Just after within a year, in 2015, when Nepal adopted its new constitution, declared the country a secular one, in place of Hindu state, India could not stand Nepal's being a secular state and found it a bar to its policy of Hindutva. It instigated Modi's and the ethnic minorities living in bordering areas with India. Soon after adoption of the constitution, India sent then top diplomat Foreign Secretary Jaishankar to Kathmandu to put pressure on the Nepalese government to delay the adoption of the constitution and hold discussions with so-called political groups opposed to it, as was learned. It was an open interference, as Nepal did not abide by it, had to face Indian economic question for 5 months. A similar economic blockade was imposed upon the landlocked Nepali people by the then Rajiv Gandhi government in the late 1980s. And the very recent boundary dispute of Nepal with India is also a glaring example of India's expansionist attitude. This way, India's relation with its neighbors, such as Maldives, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Bhutan, can be cited. But what happened with and happening with Bangladesh? Bangladesh is the largest delta on earth. India and Bangladesh share the fifth longest land boundary in the world. Bangladesh is encircled by India from three directions. The India-Bangladesh relationship goes back to the birth of Bangladesh in 1971. At that time, our strategy was common from different angles. We wanted our liberation with Indian help, and India wanted to weaken its arch rival Pakistan. Taking that advantage since inception of Bangladesh, India is showing disregard for the rights of Bangladeshi people and big brother attitude in every respect. Bangladesh is the product of rivers by its alluvial soil. A total of 57 transboundary rivers, 54 via India and 3 from Myanmar, enter Bangladesh, finally flows into Bay of Bengal. Violating all international norms and conventions, India unilaterally withdrawing water by building barrages and dams in the upstream without any concern to Bangladesh. It constructed Farakka barrage in 1975 and began to withdraw water unilaterally, turning a vast part of Bangladesh in disaster. Ecological and environmental situation is devastating. In 1996, Farakka water sharing treaty was done. Still, the fair share of water is a far cry. Same thing is happening with Tista and all other rivers. Since independence, border killing of Bangladesh by border security guards of India, BSF, is a big concern. This year, within 6 months, 25 Bangladeshis have been murdered. Recently, India has set up a coastal surveillance system, radar, contrary to the sovereignty of Bangladesh. The aim is to keep Chinese warships under surveillance for common interest with US imperialism to counter emerging China in the region. Trade deficit with India remains almost $6 billion a year. Another grave issue, National Register of Citizens, NRC, concerns Bangladesh very much. After August 2019, when Indian government completed the National Register of Citizens, NRC, in the northeastern state of Assam, over 1.9 million people were left out of the Assam NRC, creating agony for Bangladesh. Moreover, when the Home Minister mentioned a plan for an all-Indian NRC in the Indian Parliament, it caused waves of anxiety for Bangladesh. Already Bangladesh is burdened with 1 million Rohingya population. Another million in flux will create havoc. There is no doubt in it. Citizen Amendment Act 2019, in brief, provided Indian citizenship to persecute religious minorities from Bangladesh, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. Bangladesh to be bracketed with Afghanistan and Pakistan brought a negative publicity for Dhaka. India could assess anger and dissatisfaction of the broad masses of people in Bangladesh. Bangladesh, for its national interest especially, and for sustained economic growth and sovereignty, may tilt towards China. With this apprehension, India is appeasing Bangladesh with new commitments on one side and taking clandestine hostile actions and obstruction are going on. Now, in brief, many things have been cited in your paper, so I want to be brief. Now, what is the remedy? What steps can be taken? Students, youths, workers, peasants, intellectuals, professionals, progressive, democratic, political forces could make a platform for fighting expansionism, imperialism, communalism to establish peace, stability, sovereignty, mutual respect, and cooperation in amongst each and every nation and the broad masses of people in this region. Nepal can play a vital role in developing such an initiative, as because Nepal's government, party, and the people together standing on the front line has earned confidence within progressive democratic forces and masses of this region. Indian progressive and democratic forces together is also very important for this purpose. This may create a restraining effect or atmosphere to come forward with integrity. Nepal Institute of International Relations will go forward with their mission and vision. We hope we, with our meager strength and capacity, will remain with this struggle. With this, I conclude. Thank you again.
Thank you very much for your concrete deliberation. Now, I'd like to request Mr. C.P. Gajurel to deliver a speech. You are muted. Please, yes, right.
First of all, I like to apologize. Some problem was created by my computer, and so I could not continue according to your order. Dear President, guest speakers, and friends. First of all, I like to thank Nepal Institute of International Relations, NIIR, for organizing this webinar and also for inviting us to participate in it. सुनिया छ? Hello?
हजुर हजुर ठीक छ बोल्नुस्
सुनिया छ हैन?
हजुर हजुर ठीक छ सुनिन्छ.
My first observation is that leading team of NIIR has picked up very relevant and timely topic, namely India and the neighborhoods. It is more so especially for South Asia region. The relation of Indian government led by Mr. Modi with its neighbors is leading from bad to worst in the recent days. Due to the limitation of time, I will be more confined to the issue of relation of India with Nepal in the recent time. People in India are accustomed to say that they were under British rule for 200 years. To be precise, it was 190 years from 1757 to 1947. The people of India fought a hard battle against the British Empire for a whole half century to get rid of the colonial rule. The independence movement was also supported by the people and political party of neighboring countries, including Nepal. Many leaders of different political parties of Nepal were incarcerated in the Indian prisons in course of the Indian independence movement. Mainstream political parties of India claim that they achieved independence in 1947. The expectation and sense of hope in Nepal that the new state or new government of India after independence would be friendly to Nepal and will support our independence and well-being of the Nepalese people. Actually, it ran into the rough weather. The new state imposed various unequal treaties against Nepal, Thus, Nepal was turned step by step from semi-colony to a new colony of India. There were changes of guards and the governments in India subsequently, but same policy was furthered by its new government. Mr. Modi, in his first swearing-in ceremony as the PM of India, announced his neighborhood first policy. But in a very short span of time, it became clear that in reality, further unequal measures were adopted in relation to the neighboring states. In last December, Modi government annulled the Article 370 of the Indian Constitution. After that, his government brought out a new map of India in which the Indian province Jammu and Kashmir was bifurcated into Jammu and Ladakh, Limpiadhura, Kalapani, and Lipulekh, which are integral part of Nepal, were also incorporated in the Indian map. Modi government further enhanced its expedition of aggressive activities. His defense minister organized a visual press conference in Delhi, declaring that they have opened a road track from the same land, Limpiadhura, Kalapani, and Lipulekh, and that will carry it on to Mansarovar of Tibet, China. The events of these consecutive steps were more than enough to boil the blood of patriotic Nepalese people. They did not care for the lockdown imposed by Oli government of Nepal relating to the COVID-19 and took to the street. Oli government, afraid of forthcoming mass protests, declared the other day that Nepal government will bring out map of Nepal in which Limpiadhura, Kalapani, and Lipulekh will be incorporated. Such map has come out in the public, both in Nepali as well as in English languages. Both the houses of parliament in Nepal have unanimously approved the maps, but Indian government, instead of rectifying its mistake, has expressed its disapproval and criticized the Oli government for doing this job. It has also displayed disrespect to the territory of a neighboring nation. Nepalese people are unified in this issue. They are in favor of resolving this issue with India by bilateral dialogue. But Indian government seems to be reluctant for peaceful solution of this border issue by bilateral dialogue. It seems that following steps should be taken from the side of Nepal immediately. Number one, this issue should be internationalized. Number two, Nepal army should be deployed. Nepali army should be deployed. India should withdraw its from Kalapani with immediate effect. Number four,
There may be internet problem. In the meantime, I would like to request the participants to write some questions if they have any.
He's not here, is he? He's not here. So I guess
He's here.
is
He's
he?
here. Please unmute. Please unmute. Yes. You are unmuted. Good.
Hello?
Yes. Please
के भयो
unmute.
सुनिलजी?
सुनियो अहिले सुनियो.
अघि सुनिएन?
अहिले सुनियो सुनियो.
अहिले मैले बोल्दा सुनिएन?
अहिले सुनिएन. तपाईले त्यो इन्डियन आर्मी ब्याक जानुपर्छ, नेपाली आर्मी शुड बी डिप्लोइड भनेको पोइन्टदेखि आएको छैन. त्योबाट गर्दा राम्रो होला.
त्यसपछि सुनिएन?
हजुर हजुर.
के म त्यसलाई रिपिट गरौँ त?
प्लिज.
अब त्यहाँ should I repeat those points?
Yes.
त्यो डिसेबल गरेको छ त्यो मसँग त्यो मात्रै छ अरु त्यो हार्ड कपी छैन त्यो तपाईले डिसेबल गर्नु भएको छ
Disable to share the screen. Yeah, screen share is disabled.
हजुर
Share the screen disable भयो भन्नु भयो
हो रे त्यही मसँग अर्को हार्ड कपी छैन त्यही स्क्रिन हेरेर पढ्ने हो
The screen was not sharing before as well. We were not seeing your screens that time. So if that is there, you just can continue, please.
So you can continue if there is any query during that discussion. I will explain all these things. So you can continue because it is I cannot see anything over the screen.
Moderator, please.
Well,
okay, you can continue.
It has not been disabled, but I don't know what happened.
Basically, I have finished.
It sometimes happens because of technical problem. I would like to beg pardon of all the speakers and participants. Well, there are two questions, and maybe other questions are also coming gradually. This question, two questions go to Mr. Atul Thakur. One question is, you said India doesn't have expansion character. What do you say about the Sikkim case? That is one question. The other question is, what is the present status of India's neighborhood first policy and why?
All right. While talking about Indian neighborhood, I think it's not so appropriate to talk about Sikkim because Sikkim being India's internal issue. So not about into this forum, but still, since the question has come to us, we should go and do it. With Sikkim, I think we can't talk like neighbors like Bangladesh or Nepal. Sikkim was always a part of India, more or less. And if Sikkim was assimilated as part of India, it happened through a consensus-based approach. And in the context of Nepal, I think there is not much where we can speak about Sikkim. Coming to the second point, which is a good question, in fact, that what's the status of neighborhood, India's neighborhood first policy? I think it's very much in work, it's very much in practice, and see, there have been rants even during this program. You know, India has been blamed for so many things, and we are not saying that this should not happen. Being a democratic country, we always respect the voices of dissent. And without having the dissent voices, we can't imagine for a democratic culture. India's neighborhood policy is very much alive. I'm assuring you, being a policy professional somebody who works very closely with the government, and you can see the science in my presentation. In fact, I have referred towards India's outreach towards Nepal. The most recent meeting, which had taken place on 18th, my learned co-panelist, Mr. Gajurel, could not mention about it, sadly. And also, my learned co-panelist from Bangladesh did miss that India's Foreign Secretary was in Dhaka just 2 days back, and he was there to receive, to initiate few projects and to renegotiate many old projects with Bangladesh. So India is very much into help. India is very much sensitive towards its neighbors, and I would like to just clear the fog or misunderstanding towards India's approach towards Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Myanmar, or any other countries which are in South Asia. It is really a peace-loving country, no doubt about it. There is no sign of expansionism. When it comes to Kalapani, Limpit, I think this is a matter which really needs a diplomatic engagement. I agree with my Nepali counterparts. But without having a firm view on this, we have to take into consideration the historicity. He had said that India is still carrying the legacy of British, which is a misnomer. And in Nepal has been a colony, which is a very derogatory term, in fact, because Nepal is a free country, very much a free country, with sovereignty, people, and very rich human and natural resources. So it's remaining that we will call Nepal a colony of India. It's very much an independent country, and we just respect that. So, sir, please, this is not something which I will approve. So this is my observations. In case I have few more questions, I will be happy to answer. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Now the question goes to Mr. Khalequzzaman. The question is, what role may Bangladesh play regarding Indo-Pacific strategy of US? Did you hear me? You are muted. Yes. Did you hear my question?
No. Please repeat again.
The question is here, what role may Bangladesh play regarding Indo-Pacific strategy of US?
Indo-Pacific strategy of US?
Right.
United States of America?
Yes, right.
Yes. Yes, United States of America in connivance with India, if they play a common role here, then it will be disastrous for Bangladesh and for sovereignty and for their growth and development. It will be an hindrance. So the role of US, we know during Liberation War in 1971, what role US played, we know, and everybody knows that. And nowadays, still today, and this US imperialism, their machination to have a control all over the world and oil fields, and to check China's the appearance as an alternative force. They want to check it. So we should not be we should not involve ourselves in that race.
Well, thank you. One question goes to Mr. C.P. Gajurel. What do you like to say India's attitude toward Limpiadura?
Sorry?
What do you like to say India's attitude toward Limpiadura?
It is expansionist attitude. Not only expansionist, but it is direct aggression of encroachment, aggression to the other land. And Limpiadura belongs to Nepal. It is integrated part of Nepal. But unfortunately, India is claiming that this Limpiadura, Lipulekh, and Kalapani belongs to India, and they have already published their map, and they distributed the same map in Nepal, and there is big protest in Nepal against this type of aggressive attitude of India. And so India should realize that it is Limpiadhura, Lipulekh and Kalapani is integral part of Nepal, and they have to respect the integrity of other neighboring.
That's finished. Well, I think his answer is complete. There is again problem with the internet. I'm going to ask question raised by our participant. It goes to Mr. Atul Thakur. Are you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Can we expect any concrete steps from Indian side on the current Nepal-India border issue so that the long-standing Nepal-India relation will be more stronger and intimate?
Yes, of course, it has to be. There is no other option. Except dialogue, we don't have any option to contemplate. India has already shown enough willingness to engage with Nepal. And most recently, I think we all are missing this point that on 18th we had a very productive meeting, bilateral meeting with the Indian ambassador, Mr. Vinay Mohan Kwatra, and the ambassador, foreign secretary of Nepal, Mr. Berag. So India, that process is very much on track. But on the similar line, Nepal also has to re-engage with Nepal, and I think Nepal has also shown some good signal in this regard. On 15th August, on India's Independence Day, Mr. K.P. Oli, the Prime Minister of Nepal, did a speak with the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, and both had discussed about the mutual engagements. I think this is a welcome move now, and we can expect some positive things happening on bilateral fronts. This is my submission. India is very much serious about resolving all the long-pending issues, and Nepal also has to reciprocate. I have been keep stressing on this point, reciprocation. So sorry to use it more than dozen times, but reciprocity is really something which Nepal has to take into consideration. Also, it has to create a positive environment for dialogue and discussion. So it's very much on track. Thanks.
Well,
I think there is another question.
Well, just now I got one more question to Mr. Thakur. Why is India not willing to talk to Nepal regarding Lipulekh, Kalapani and Limpiadhura? Good friends always settle their conflict via talks.
See, it's very, very simple. We have to engage, we have to create the platform for dialogues. Then only we can resolve these problems, if these are problems at all. And Nepal cannot really shrug it off that it has not done anything on these issues, because it's not a new thing which has surfaced between India and Nepal. You know, we are completely forgetting few facts. What happened in 1962 when India and China fought on that border, and Nepal willingly, voluntarily given that part to India to use as a front door within China. It's another reality that then China was not so much in demand in Kathmandu, but nothing to offend anyone. Nepal has every right to be comfortable with China, or even extra comfortable with China, because it perceives China as a non-aggressive country, which is a very surprising thing, because BRI project itself is a hegemonic thing. So I think the one point solution is we have to sit and talk. There is no other way out. India must come forward. India has already shown its willingness to engage with Nepal, and that is, I don't see any obstacle between two countries now. Dialogue can take place. Since 15th August, there have been significant developments. We all are aware about it. Even our prime ministers did a speak. So no problem in this regard. Second question is regarding EPG. EPG was a bilateral mechanism. So it's not that only the Indian Prime Minister's acceptance of its report will solve the issues. And I think, as much I have observed as an independent columnist or a scholar, I think that EPG report has some flaws. this should be reconsidered, not only by India, but Nepal as well, because both countries will have some problems if it will go ahead with APG report. It is not something a solution-led document. It has problems. It should be redrafted properly. Although I have not gone through the document, I have just gone through a few points. And sadly, EPG report, I can't see it in public. So my esteemed audience can enlighten me if he or she has that copy. I would like to go through it and then come back.
Well, I don't see any more question. Just a minute. Questions are being typed over here. Well, one question goes to Mr. Khalequzzaman. One question is there for you. As a senior socialist and communist leader, do Mr. Gajurel and Mr. Khalequzzaman regret on the support they took from India while accelerating their political movements in Nepal and Bangladesh during Maoist movement in Nepal and liberation movement in Bangladesh? This question goes to both of you, I think. As a senior socialist and communist leaders, do Mr. Gajurel and Mr. Khalequzzaman regret on the support they took from India while accelerating their political movements in Nepal and Bangladesh during Maoist movement in Nepal and liberation movement in Bangladesh?
So, I said earlier that the liberation war of Bangladesh, India should be, we are grateful to India as because they gave shelter and they helped us in the struggle. But similarly, India should be grateful to us as because I said earlier that our rival, the Pakistan, they could weaken the Pakistan. So it was not a gift of India. Our liberation is not a gift of India, and we never support any imperialist or any big power support for the independence and sovereignty of a definite country. Here you see there is some talk, and it was said that dialogue and talks it is necessary, obviously, but it should be on definite agenda. But if it is only a talk show, that carries no meaning. And 2 days back, Foreign Ministry Secretary came to Bangladesh, but after he just did not respond or raised any pending issues, long pending issues like water sharing in general and Tista in particular. And the newspapers in India and Bangladesh, they were quoting that the visit was just to check how far Bangladesh proceeded towards that and how to prevent it. So it is not our issue, but what we say that we always supported the struggle of Nepali people. They have thought monarchy and they have established a democracy, secular state, and now they are advancing towards to establish the cause of social exploration-free socialist society in Nepal. We are in support of that, and still we are in support of it.
Thank you. The same question goes to Mr.
Yeah.
Speaker.
First of all, factually, we did not seek any support from Indian government. As everybody knows that the People's War was going on in Nepal, not only for the domestic reactionaries, but also against Indian expansionism. So we were fighting against Indian expansionism, and there was no question of getting support from Indian government as such. And so far India is concerned, there are other forces, there are Indian people, there are revolutionary forces in India whose support we seek, and we were getting that support there, but not from the Indian government. We have to differentiate between these two. Indian government is different thing, and the Indian revolutionary forces and the Indian people, they are different thing. And we enjoy support from the Indian and the Indian revolutionary forces. And though we have some problems with the leadership of the CPN Maoist during that time. In the latter stage of the People's War, there was a negotiation internally with the Indian government that has been exposed now from Mr. Baburam Bhattarai and Comrade Prachanda. They had negotiated with the Indian government through the Prime Minister's office, and so many things have been exposed now. That is different story, but it was not the party's line. So far party's line is concerned, we did not seek any support from India because we were fighting against the Indian expansionism, and there was no point of getting support from India. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can, with your permission, Mr. Moderator, can I step in just for a minute? I have to just make a few observations on this.
Okay, please.
Yeah. First to Comrade Gajurel, thank you very much for acknowledging your goodwill for India's people and revolutionary forces. Some way you are saying that India is close to your heart. So thank you very much for this, first of all. And certainly governments have its own way of working. I'm not denying this. But saying this, that the decade-long revolution in Nepal was against Indian expansionism, do you think it is factually correct? I don't think so, because it was a war against feudalism in Nepal, first of all, and the institution of monarchy. Second. Third, it was for economic emancipation, which sadly could not happen. Can you please enlighten me on that? And as far as my Bangladesh counterpart is, I'm a little bit surprised when he says that India had an imperialistic motive behind liberation of Bangladesh. Well, I'm completely settled with your view, my dear co-panelist, because this is a new thing for me. I have been reading a lot on Bangladesh India relations. Nobody I have ever heard that had said that India had any imperialistic tendency to get Bangladesh liberated from Pakistan, or it was serving its own purpose. You could have done it in Sindh. You are aware about it. This is not a truth, and let's keep our focus positive and constructive. Otherwise, we would simply derail the prospect of South Asian integration. I have been repeating it again and again. Sorry.
Well,
from my words, excuse me, from my words, I was not telling that India helped us with an imperialist nation. India, on their own interest, they supported us. But it is the Indian people. What you say, Indian people and India are not the same. And I did not say that it was the expansionist tendency that India will occupy Bangladesh. That was not the thing.
Sorry if
India
I
wanted
heard it
to
wrong.
weaken.
Well, please, the panelists don't discuss among you, because here are many questions you have to answer. I'm sorry. Please.
From Mr. Gajurel, I would like to hear.
So
I had asked
definitely. So yeah, very briefly, I will reply his query. Actually, the People's War was started against the monarchy, because during that time there was monarchy, which we think that they represent the feudal and comprador and bureaucrat capitalists.
Right.
They represent, monarchy represented that class. And People's War was initiated against that the exploitation and the suppression of that class. Definitely it is true. But our revolution was not only against the domestic reactionaries, because it was primarily supported by Indian expansionism, which we used to call. So it was, the monarchy was supported in the latest stage when there was a conflict in between the monarchy and the Indian government. There were some problems, and they took initiative in 12-point agreement and all these things. But primarily, when we started the People's War and we continued for years, up to that time, monarchy was being supported by India, no doubt. But in later stage, India took the initiative, and the leadership of the People's War itself, they compromised or they capitulated with India, and this type of agreements among the political parties and CPN Maoist was possible, which was taken initiative by India.
Well,
But sir, India had also supported Maoists, if you will not forget it.
I do apologize.
Anyway,
Let's go
yes.
to the question. Question to Mr. Khalequzzaman. What is Bangladesh's position towards China's BRI and Indo-Pacific Strategy, or FOIP?
Bangladesh will act according to its national interest and its sovereignty, sovereignty and its national interest. They will decide with whom and what extent they will keep relation.
Thank you. Now, this is not a question. Actually, this is a part of thanks to Mr. Mr. Atul Thakur. Here, the writer says, the participant says, thanks for response, Mr. Thakur. We are waiting India and Nepal sitting together to resolve the issue. And there is one more question. This question goes to, okay, what do you think about tensions between two great powers of Asia, China and India? What impacts may be there to the region and to Nepal, particularly to CP Gajurel? Okay. This question goes to Mr. CP Gajurel. Should I read out again?
Repeat the question because I have some problem with this equipment test.
Okay. I'm reading out.
Please repeat the question.
What do you think about the tensions between two great powers?
Yeah, please repeat.
What do you think about the tensions between two great powers of Asia, China and India? What impacts may be there to the region and to Nepal, particularly? Did you hear? Did you hear my question?
Please repeat. I could not hear properly.
Okay. Is it okay now?
Yeah, it is okay.
Okay. What do you think about the tensions between two great powers of Asia, China and India? What impacts may be there to the region and to Nepal particularly?
Definitely, we don't want that the big powers should fight each other. That is what we don't want. But actually, the contradiction is sharpening in between China and India. That we can see that has been reflected from different events, and their army confrontation also reflects that the contradiction is very much severe. The reason is that US thinks that the Chinese CPC-led government is confronting with US, and it is the main power which can contend with US right at this moment. So the contending power is China. So America wants to make some allies with the other forces. America wants to make ally with India and fight against China. And as you raised one question regarding Indo-Pacific strategy, that Indo-Pacific strategy is such a strategy which likes to isolate China and makes allies against China in Asia, and it likes to make a base strategic point to Nepal. So they had initiated the MCC. So because US wants to fight against China with their allies in Asia, and now, as we know, that India has become ally with American, US. So because of this contradiction, international contradiction, their contradiction has been sharpened. They have some problems, border problems and other problems, and they have war in 1962, and there are
Well, I think there is again internet problem. There is internet problem, and we have two more questions, and we will not entertain more questions now because it is already time. Two more questions, both the questions go to Mr. Atul Thakur. One is, maintaining cordial relation between Nepal and India is essential and beneficial to both the nations. But recently, due to the irresponsible statements from some of Indian media, is worsening the situation. Can they be suggested to stop broadcasting groundless statements? This is one question. Do you like to answer this question first and second later, or you want me to read out both the questions?
Yeah, please read out both, please.
Okay. The second question is, do you sincerely believe that annexation of Sikkim has nothing to do with Indian foul play orchestrated by Indira Gandhi and Raw? If so, either you are missing some important information about South Asia, or you are not willing to accept it.
Sir, can you please repeat the second question? You were not clear. Your question.
Second question.
Second question, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you sincerely believe that annexation of Sikkim has nothing to do with Indian foul play orchestrated by Indira Gandhi and Raw? If so, either you are missing some important information about South Asia, or you are not willing to accept it.
Let me begin with the difficult question first, second one. I think I'm not agree with the question itself. It's not question, it seems like an observation. And I don't think Raw had any role to play in Sikkim's annexation to India. It happened with the government of India's discretion, advances, as well as the responses from the Sikkim king. So we have to go deep into the history, but I have a submission here, very modest submission here, that please don't drag Raw between Sikkim's annexation to India. This is not something on the right line, correct line. Coming to the first question, yes, I do agree with you, but we can't see it in isolation. Even a section of Nepalese media has been responsible for this mess. But I do really admit that some of Indians have played bad role during the height of tension. And there must be some curb on that. But at the same time, I think it will go in favor of Nepal if it can also does something for its own media. But at the same time, I will also compliment some of the publications in Nepal. I've been a columnist for Kantipur and Kathmandu for over a decade now. I know how diligently they have reported during the time of crisis. So I have admiration for that brand of journalism. But there are few publications who have really not done so well. Similarly, in India, there is a section like Hindu where I have been writing continuously. One of my articles was very loved in Nepal, which I had written with India's former Foreign Affairs Minister, Mr. Yashwant Sinha. India should resume dialogue. So we were speaking like revolutionary in favor of Nepal. So you can't say that all people in India, all publications are bad. People are not keeping good concern of Nepal. It's not true. There is a natural law there as well. There is good and bad. So we have to take this into consideration. Like we are also facing the problem in Nepal. And for your information, I'm not completely an outsider in Nepal. I'm very much entitled with this country, even at personal level. So Nepal is very dear to me, no doubt about it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. And because of technical problem, I think Mr. C.P. Gajurel could not complete his answer to the question. Do you like to complete it, or it's okay? You are muted.
Oh, now it is okay.
Okay.
So will you repeat that question?
Just a minute. What do you think about the tensions between two great powers of Asia, China and India? What impacts may be there to the region and to Nepal particularly?
Definitely, our two big neighbors, when there is a contradiction between them and there is it will definitely affect the situation of Nepal. And we don't want our neighbors should fight. And definitely it will influence the situation. But it is not that we can decide everything. Nepal can decide the relation between Nepal and India and China. It can not happen. Nepal cannot decide. It is according to their interest. Now, India and China, there are conflict regions. There are regions for conflict, and because of that only, there was conflict in the military front also, in which 20 soldiers of Indian Army were killed, including the officers. Because all these things did not happen spontaneously. It doesn't mean that the leaders of CPC or the People's Republic of China and the Indian government, they are not wise. They are wise enough. It is a considered way that they are dealing with each other. And regarding this issue, we think that India likes to compete with China, and India is emerging as other forces, other parties. They have made some analysis that India wants to emerge as an imperialist power. So when India emerges as imperialist power, definitely that will be a big threat for Nepal. It is not an imperialist power until now, and it is only expansionist power, and we have to we are in a very big trouble with the policy of India. When it will emerge as imperialist power, what will be the situation of Nepal? That we have to think about. So far China is concerned, we have to be careful about any outside intervention, no doubt. If China will intervene in Nepal, we will not keep quiet that it is China, what is being done by China is correct. We cannot say like that. Any intervention carried out from outside, we oppose equally, no doubt. Because so far what we are doing is, when there was agreement between Prime Minister of India and China regarding the Lipu Lake, because they considered Lipu Lake as a transit point for two countries, because Lipu Lake belongs to Nepal, and these two countries has no any right to take any decision regarding that. So we oppose China regarding that. But there are very few issues, confronting issues with China, because with the long border in China, we don't have any dispute. So far, we don't have any proof, any material proof that China is doing something harmful against Nepal. But so far India is concerned, we have disputes in many regions. Almost 72 places there are disputes. And quite recently, as I have already explained, that Limpiadura, Kalapani and Lipu Lake, there is problem, and they claim that it is the land, it belongs to India. And since last 58 years, India has deployed its army in Nepal. They have been stationed at Kalapani, and we request that they should kindly withdraw their army from our territory. But India is not doing all these things. So there are many problems with India and very less insignificant problem with China. So these two things cannot be considered equally. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, our honorable speakers. Now, I would like to request our chair of this session to end the session with his concluding remarks. Thank you. Yes, you are muted.
Thank you, Sunilji. Now it's okay, I think. The paper presenters, Mr. C.P. Gajurel, Senior Political Leader from Nepal, Mr. Khalequzzaman, Senior Political Leader from Bangladesh, and Mr. Atul Thakur from India-Nepal Center in India. Other distinguished personnel with expertise and interest in Indian and regional affairs and foreign policy. My colleagues at NIIR, a very good afternoon. Let me express my heartfelt thanks to all of you, and I'm delighted for your active participation and contribution in the preceding deliberations. Extensive views have been shared and much has been discussed this afternoon on India and the neighborhoods. I would not prefer to repeat it. However, let me share briefly about it. Despite making an impressive start with this neighborhood first policy, PM Modi's government is increasingly battling resentment in the region. The message is clear: muscular tactics cannot replace mature diplomacy. I have mentioned few events. We have already heard about the new political and legislative map from India that includes our Kalapani, Dipulek, and Nimpiathura. A few years back, President Vidya Bhandari's visit to India was cancelled, and the ambassador was called back from Delhi. This all, and also Prime Minister Modi's visit to Limini was also cancelled. These political developments are symbolic of the frosty relationship that India and Nepal currently share. More worryingly, the Nepal-related developments are actually just the beginning of the larger story of how New Delhi diplomacy is alienating the region. The BJP-led National Democratic Alliance government's neighborhood policy, which began exceptionally well with Mr. Modi's glamorous tour of the region, soon after his equally glamorous swearing in, has not just managed to make more adversaries than friends in the region in such a surprisingly short span of time, but has also gone in letter and spirit against the eloquent promises made by the party in its election manifesto, which mentioned BJP believes that political stability, progress, and peace in the region are essential for South Asia's growth and development. But India's relations with traditional allies have turned cold. India and its neighbors have drifted apart. The absence of statecraft has never been felt so acutely low as today. Save for Bhutan and perhaps Bangladesh, much of the South Asia has major grievances against New Delhi today. Clearly, then there is something fundamentally wrong with the BJP-led government's neighborhood diplomacy. If so, what is it that New Delhi has gone to deserve the ear of its neighbors? While New Delhi is not so friendly relationship with Islamabad is unsurprising, what has provoked the other countries, some of which figured very high on Mr. Modi's bilateral priorities, to suddenly come out openly against India. Simply blaming China is no answer at all. Let us talk of two cases, Nepal and Sri Lanka. So micromanaging Nepal. Let us talk of Nepal. Have Nepalese people felt the territorial ambition of India? Is India still behaving as big brother, or is India too nosy in Nepal? One of the major reasons for India's growing unpopularity is increasing tendency to interfere in the domestic affairs of the smaller neighbors, either citing security implications or to upset the larger country's unfriendly strategic choices. In the case of Nepal, India's unnecessary meddling in Nepal's constitution drafting process, during which a substantial political argument was thwarted by poor diplomatic style. The problematic part was twofold: the manner in which New Delhi publicly expressed its displeasure with Nepal's sovereign act of constitution drafting, and the manner in which India allegedly abated the emergency blockade of essential supplies to Nepal, because none of New Delhi's business to trust good sense of Kathmandu. Meddling in Sri Lanka. If New Delhi's mission Kathmandu was both a failure and distasteful. His subtle interference in Sri Lanka in the run-up to the island elections, the previous one, has set a dangerous precedent. Several reports at the time claimed that Colombo had asked New Delhi to withdraw its raw citizenship to Sri Lanka. After recent election, the current new government in Colombo has been vigorously engaging with China for economic and infrastructure studies. Hopefully, India, our very close friend, would realize where really the onus lies and come up with a more pragmatic and fulfilling foreign policy for overall development and progress in the neighborhoods. It could be the first step that India could take towards aspiring for a permanent seat at the UN Security Council. With these few words, once again, I thank you all. And I invite you to our future endeavors. Every Friday we organize these webinars. With these words, I hereby close this afternoon session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Namaste to everybody.
Oh, thank you, everybody. Dear scholars, we are sorry that we had to remove some of the peoples from this webinar, as they were trying to create the problems by doing unnecessary activities like chanting slogans, using slang words. So we had to log the event by that cause. Maybe some genuine participants could not take part by that. So we apologize for them all. Thank you all.
Okay, namaste to everybody.